like that has ever happened in American history. You don't just cancel flights from Europe. Like, that's inconceivable. It's an act of despotism, really. We have the right to travel. Trump didn't think so. And I think that that moment is the moment of crazy. That's when everybody thought anything was possible. That's when the Democrats went nuts, that's when the governors went nuts, everybody went insane. And we've experienced nothing but panic ever since. And none of it has made any sense whatsoever ever since then. Well, my job is to work as editorial director at the American Institute for Economic Research. And God bless Ed Stringham, who permitted us to do whatever we wanted on this thing. So, and again, this lecture's not being recorded, so I will tell you.
Yes, it is.
We have this thing called the Liberty Movement, you know? And people talk about it as it's this great bulwark against tyranny. It was the saddest thing for me, personally, to see almost the entire thing go silent. Nobody said anything. It was just us, for a long time. It was just us. We were decrying every day what was happening to the globe, and it was shocking. Again, Ed Stringham protected me, protected Phil, protected Pete, protected all of us, protected Alex, and I'll get to you in a moment. During those days, we felt very alone, which is okay. It's okay. But then we began to do some research. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about what happened in those days. We're talking about March now, late March, early April. I began to get curious. Look, I'm 56, right? That makes me of a certain generation. Who here is older than I am? Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Sorry for asking that question. So I was raised with viruses. Raised with viruses. From a generation that understood them. In a funny way, like my mother, my first experience of the virus was being in a schoolroom where one of the kids caught chickenpox. And he was rewarded by being the first, by having a party where we all went, and we all caught the virus. We all caught the chickenpox. And my parents explained to me when I broke out in an uncomfortable bit bumps all over the place about immunology. It was a very high-level way of understanding things. It seems like being sick is bad, but actually being sick is good. Because that's the way you defeat a virus. This guy is like, yeah, this man would drink a glass of COVID right now. Drink a glass of Celtic COVID. A quarantini, a little bit of flour, a little bit of ginger, a little COVID, a little gin, a little absinthe. But anyway, she taught me about viruses, and it was very sweet. You know, my mother, God bless her, understood about illnesses. It was not something you run away from, it's something you embrace and you celebrate. It sounds strange, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to understand. But when I would get sick, they would reward me. They'd say, you're getting stronger, and that's good. Here's your blanket. Here's your television. Here's your Brady Bunch shows you can watch. One of the episodes featured a special episode in which they all got measles. Yeah, you know that. And no, you don't, but you should. And here's ice cream. And you're getting stronger, you're developing immunities. Your immune system really matters. And the only way we learn to defeat a virus, we learned this in the course of the 20th century. I'm sorry to say it, I know it's offensive. You get it, you get stronger. The virus goes away. It's called herd immunity. Right? If you said those few words on YouTube in the last 3 months, you would be taken down.
You are demonized.
That's right. That's the story. I mean, Zuckerberg himself said, anybody questions social distancing gets taken down from YouTube. No, he's not Facebook guy. The CEO of YouTube said that. And Zuckerberg has said, we're going to take down any post that questions the WHO. Well, what does that mean? WHO has been, that's the World Health Organization, has been all over the place. Oh, China's great, Sweden's great. Like, have we ever lived through a time when the obliviousness of experts has ever been more on display? I mean, it's just been absurd. These people contradict themselves day after day after day. Anyway, my mother was my trainer on all this, so I was always very naturally suspicious of this. So I began to look back at, also, isn't it strange that people think this is the very first virus we ever had in the history of humanity? It's so very weird. It's like, and I've talked to a young person, very interesting, a young person who's under 30, and I asked her, I said, why do you suppose this is such a big deal to you? Because as far as I can tell, this is a mild virus. It's mild. It is. Why is it such a big deal? She said, well, nothing has ever happened to us before. This is the very first thing that's ever happened to us. So it's something we can care about and do. And it took me about a month. By the way, I've had a lot of people write me on Twitter and say they were panicked throughout all of March and April, and then sometime in late April they got smart and started researching and looking into it and realized that this is all ridiculous. And they flipped. It's very interesting. I think it's true for a lot of Americans. My own estimate is that about a third of the American public is incredulous at this point. They don't believe anything. They have to believe anything. About a third. We're gonna get to half, and then 2/3, and in 5 years. Oh my God, right? Once people figure this out. Okay, so what do? I'm researching, right? So I thought, maybe let's look back at past viruses, because I vaguely remember these things. It turns out that, let's just kind of bounce back in history, just a little bit of time. My first article on viruses and quarantine power was 2006. I think it was called the avian bird flu. Am I right about that? Yeah, 2006. And it was George Bush who was in a frenzy about this. And it never amounted to anything. It turns out only birds get the bird flu, you know. So that was very disappointing to him. But I went back and looked at, there was another one. I think Fiona told me about this, 2009, H1N1, which is the same as 1918. So of all viruses to panic about, it would have been that one, right? But hey, we had Obama, we had a financial crisis, nobody had time for a fucking virus. And it turns out it wasn't anything either. So I looked back at 1968-69, which was the so-called Hong Kong flu, which I was alive during that time. I don't remember anything about it. But listen, that virus, there were only like 250 million Americans. We tended to live to 68, not 78 like we do now. And 100,000 Americans died from the Hong Kong flu. Hong Kong flu. And I look back, thanks to Phil Magnuson's expert researching techniques, and the New York Times is saying things like, everybody stay calm. The medical community will take care of this. Let's not politicize this disease. It's no big deal. It comes and goes. We're going to get here herd immunity. You have to get the disease to be protected from the disease. We'll figure out the demographics. Turns out a lot of people, young people, died from this disease, unlike this one. This 68, 69 was actually serious. Hong Kong flu was actually terrible. And so I wrote this article about the Hong Kong flu of 69. Basically, the article was weird. It was like, well, this happened, but nobody cared. It's like, yeah, it sucks, man. Nobody wants to die, ever. We should all live forever. For sure, we should. Catholicism figure that one out. But this was a bad disease. But it wasn't a thing. We went on with life as normal. And so I began to think, well, what is life as normal? And so I was reading through all the things that happened, civil rights protests, this rock festival, that thing, this theater thing, Broadway never closed, nothing happened. And then I noticed that Woodstock happened in August. So I wrote an article, and so look, I'm an editor. So I wrote this entire article, and I thought, what's the most interesting thing in this article? And I noticed the most interesting thing is that Woodstock happened in the middle of a pandemic. So I changed the headline to that. Woodstock happened in the middle of a pandemic. Okay, the peak of the pandemic was January, and then there was the second wave in November, December. And some schools closed because there wasn't anybody in the classroom like, oh yeah, this sucks, let's go to Christmas, everybody stay. But that was it, otherwise no closures. So I said, Woodstock happened in the middle of the pandemic. Okay, boom, it went viral. Now, a little bit of background on this, because you'll be interested in this. Zuckerberg at the time was very concerned about fake news. So he hired a bunch of fact checkers to figure out what was true and what was not true. And that was BuzzFeed and Snopes and Reuters and I don't know, USA Today, something like that. So like 5 or 6 like expert fact checkers. So suddenly, and it was very funny because Lou Eastman wrote me. He said, "Oh, Reuters has fact checked your article." I said, "Oh shit." Now I'm in trouble. He goes, "No, it's good news. They said it's true." So Zuckerberg suddenly shoving my article in front of millions of people who've never heard of me, or AIR, saying this is a true story. Woodstock happened in the middle of the pandemic. So we got like 4 million views on that one article. I was like, poof, I'm safe. This really happened. Weird times. And then a lot of people got upset. No, that can't be right. Because actually Woodstock happened at the low ebb of the flu. They were picking apart the article. And so after about 5 days of lobbying from big shots, Reuters downgraded me. So suddenly I went from true to partially true. And that sucks. And so Zuckerberg stopped delivering as many versions of my article. And then about 5 days later, after massive lobbying, Reuters came back again and said, well, it's partially misleading, actually. So I was like, that's terrible. But then about that time, USA Today said, oh, we've read it. It's entirely true. So then Zuckerberg suddenly blows it up again. I think by the end we had, 20, 30, 40 million hits on this article? And it kind of weirdly, briefly made me famous, and I was doing interviews all over the place about this. And then even, we had a lot of late night talk shows talking about Woodstock occurred in the middle of the pandemic. But then BuzzFeed, Snopes was next. And they're like, oh, this article is completely misleading. So then Zuckerberg's like, no, you can't see this article anymore. So, but that was after 40 million views or something like that. Anyway, it was a weird time. I really got an inside look at how it is you know, what news you get and why. It was very strange. Algorithms are driving everything, really. Don't let yourself be manipulated. Well, then I wrote another article about 1957. This would have been the Asian flu, 57, 58. Very, very scary. 116,000 Americans died from that one. I think I called it something like Ike was president, Elvis was king, and 116,000 Americans died in a pandemic, right? And nobody knew about it. Very scary disease, very terrifying. We only lived to 67 in those days, and there were only 200 million of us, so it was a very, very serious disease. And the New York Times at the time, the council said, look, we've got a disease. What should you do? Go to the doctor if you're sick. Just trust your medical professionals. We got this. It's no big deal. Move on. One editorial. One. And everybody stayed calm. Amazing. And then I wrote another article about the polio epidemic of 48 to 51. And it turns out, that was really, oh, by the way, the 57-58 thing was extremely scary because it particularly targeted expecting women. Imagine that. Imagine if COVID-19 had targeted expecting women to kill the mother and child. Right? That was 57-58.
Zika.
What?
Zika did the same thing.
Zika, yeah. A scary, scary disease. So you're going to make anything out of anything, essentially. But when the press was responsible and decent, and they cared about science. They didn't whip up the public into a frenzy. That is not these times. I can assure you that. Polio was interesting because, imagine a disease that targets like young women 8 to 12 and cripples them for life. Innocent young children. Terrifying disease, really. Some swimming pools closed, some public schools closed, there was a lot of panic, but mostly it was a sense of like calming everything down. There was a thing that was started, which later became the March of Dimes. It was called the Foundation for the Eradication of Polio or something like that. And FDR himself was a polio victim and really, really wanted to endorse the cause, but the Polio Foundation at the time said, nope, we don't want your endorsement. Politics is one thing, disease is another. We should have a permanent wall between these two things. We need to treat a disease as a disease. If FDR endorses our foundation, everybody will think that it's a political issue. So we can't do that because we're scientific people. We understand science. So we can't bless that generation. And going back in time, I gradually learned something really important. That after 1918, that was the Spanish flu killed, what, 2 to 4 million? This guy seems nervous. 2 to 4 million people? It was terrible. After that, there were quarantines in San Francisco, quarantines and lockups and shutdowns in Chicago. New York never closed. But it was terrible. And what the medical community realized is that panic is not the way you respond to a virus. We've got to get smart. We've got to get wise. We've got to figure out immunities. And so by the mid-1930s, they really did figure it out. We've got to educate people about viruses. If they're not scary, we've done a deadly dance with viruses for hundreds of thousands of years. The only way, in the end, to kill a virus is to get it and get immune to it. And actually, by the 1960s, 1970s, we discovered the theory of herd immunity. You know what that is? It's very interesting. Like if there's 10 of us, and we're all susceptible to it, only 6 of us need to get it, and the other 4 are naturally protected. It's a very interesting thing. You don't know entirely, is it 30%, is it 60%, is it 70%? It's different for every virus. So that's the theory of herd immunity. I don't like the term because it presumes that we're all animals, and it's not true. We have the intelligence to figure out how to isolate vulnerable communities while encouraging, really, non-vulnerable communities to get the disease and get immunities. That was what science told us by the 1970s. We knew it and we understood it. Okay, I'm getting to the core point. How long have I been speaking? Okay, we're fine. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets weird. This is some weird stuff you're not going to believe. Now, I know that there's a lot of you in this room that think, and you might be right, that what's happened to us is a consequence of a conspiracy. Like, the New World Order is trying to crush our rights, and all of which might be true. But I think there's a simpler explanation. And the simpler explanation is intellectual confusion. And here's the weird thing of how it happened. And by the way, by way of background, you know, there's a theory that certain people have that humanity is always getting smarter and we're always getting better, and that we're always more scientific than the last people. In the old days, they used to word witches and word Jews and blah, blah, blah. But now we're really intelligent because we have the internet and so on and so on. There's another theory, which my mentor Murray Rothbard had, which is that there's weird moments in history where there's lost knowledge. We used to know something and then suddenly we didn't know it anymore. And the paradigmatic case in that case is scurvy. Scurvy. Mm-hmm. So scurvy is this weird disease you get, makes your mouth bleed and lack of vitamin C. And the way to cure scurvy is with lemons and limes and oranges. It's pretty simple. And we knew this in the 14th century and 15th century. We knew it very well. But we had cured scurvy so much that 200 years, 300 years later, we forgot the cure. Because nobody had scurvy. And then suddenly people had scurvy, and they were like, what the hell is this scurvy thing? So we had to rediscover the cure. So what happens in history? That there's breaks where we knew something that we suddenly didn't know something. So I'm playing around with the possibility that my mother's generation knew something that somehow we didn't know, that we forgot. And here I think is what happened. And it goes something like this. And by the way, what I'm about to tell you sounds a little fanciful and outrageous, but I can promise you that I've talked to many people who were there. and know everything that happened. And it goes something like this. It's very strange. True story. You remember this guy George W. Bush, right? So he invaded Iraq. And he was an apocalyptic guy. And things didn't go so well for him in Iraq. Yeah, so 9/11 happened. The worst thing ever. So it made him crazy. So he's like, what are we gonna do? Well, we have to invade Iraq, invade Afghanistan. Wait, that didn't have anything to do with it. 9/11. Doesn't matter. We have to do something. So then he began to get worried about bioterrorism. Oh, they're gonna unleash a virus on us. And this guy, it's like sleepless nights, every day, just worrying about the world falling apart, an apocalyptic mentality. And so in 2006, he said, look, somebody pressed a book on the 1918 Spanish flu into his hands, and he read the book flap, and said, look, we have to, I'm pretty sure I know this, and so he said, look, we need to have a plan to deal with the next pandemic. We need to have a plan to deal with the next pandemic. So he sent out orders to the State Department, to the Veterans Administration, to the Center for Disease Control, and to everybody who really mattered. There will be a White House meeting on how to deal with the next pandemic. And suddenly, all these people who otherwise had no relevance in life and nobody cared about epidemiologists until like 3 months ago, right? But they exist. And they exist. Why would you go into epidemiology? I don't really understand that. The number one thing I care about is an epidemic. I'm going to study it and get a PhD. Then when the time comes, people will call me. I don't know how. I don't really get it. It's a little weird. Like, normally if you care about human health and stuff, you become like a doctor. There's some people who become epidemiologists. Anyway, so Bush is like, all right, I need some input from a lot of different parties. So there's this guy, and his name is Robert Glass. And he was working out of the Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he got an email from George Bush and said, can you help us prepare for the next pandemic? And he's like, well, I'm a computer modeler. I don't really understand viruses. That's what I do. It's like, I'm kind of a fancy guy. I could have gone into gaming. I could have built SimCity. I dabbled in Pac-Man a little bit. But you want me to solve the next virus? I don't know. I'm not sure how to do that. But he had this wonderful, precocious daughter. Her name was Sarah Glass, 14 years old, still terrified of cooties. And she had a science project in her high school. And she began to figure out, what if one person has the virus and doesn't want to give it to another person? How far away do they need to stand to avoid that? Probably 6 feet. 6 feet. And if everybody stood 6 feet apart, the virus will not infect people. What happens to the virus? I don't know. It moves back to Mars. It goes back to Wuhan and packs its bags. Finds no takers, it just disappears. Anyway, so Robert Glass, a doting father, and I'm one too, so I understand this, said to his daughter, that is brilliant. It's a brilliant insight. I have a lot of charts and statistical programs. We can actually cobble together a central plan for America on how to deal with the next virus. It'll all be based on this idea that everybody should stay away from each other and lock down. We should all probably go live in a refrigerator box for 3 months and just be fed through a little hole, And now that's the way we defeat a virus. And so he wrote a paper. He and his daughter of 14 signed a peer-reviewed paper which is filled with graphs and 3D magic and bar charts and all sorts of things on how we're going to have targeted, layered containment, TLC, targeted layered containment. And we're going to socially distance from everybody. The first use of that term, 2006, this paper, Robert Glass, not a virologist, not an immunologist, not an epidemiologist, just a computer programmer with a doting father with his charming daughter. And they pounded out a paper which outraged every single medical professional in this country, without exception. Well, with one exception, I'll tell you about him in a second. Piece of shit. But among the people who saw this paper was the great immunologist, the greatest immunologist and epidemiologist of the 21st century, Donald Henderson, God rest his soul, right? Died in 2016. We love him. The man who eradicated smallpox. He was the head of virology at the World Health Organization, was a major player at the CDC, just a nice, humble doctor from Indiana who had a passion to eradicate smallpox. Smallpox is vicious. It's weird. It leaves you with scaly skin. It kills you. It's a freaking catastrophe. Smallpox is just a disaster. It's not like chickenpox. Smallpox is really, really bad, and one of nature's wickedest tricks on humankind. And this man devoted himself to it. It took him 30 years of his life traveling the world. He traveled everywhere, and he learned things. And the smallpox vaccine was, by the way, was the first strains. It was invented like the late 18th century, but it didn't really become scientific until about the 1930s. And he devoted the rest of his life. He traveled the world, in booths, traipsing through the mud, helping extremely poor, ignorant, illiterate people administer this vaccine to help control it. And it was very complicated to administer. Vaccines are very difficult. Like, one of the things he discovered is like in some parts of the world they would wipe the needle with alcohol. Well, it turns out if there's traces of alcohol on the needle when you stick in the vaccine, it changes the vaccine itself. So they learned that you can only wipe it off with water and a towel. Okay, that took like 10 years to discover this. This man was pious, and he was on a mission from God, really. And he was responsible for the eradication. By the way, he's a very interesting God, because two, I think, specimens of smallpox still exist. They're both in Moscow right now in labs. He was very against destroying them. You could say it's superstition, I don't know, but he believes that viruses are always among us, and if we finally attempt to destroy them, they will come back in a more horrifying form. So that was one of his last passions before he died in 2016, was to preserve the smallpox virus from destruction. Anyway, so he sees this paper. Now he's pretty old at this point. I think he's in like his late 70s. So he sees this paper from Robert and Sarah Glass, and he's mortified. And he's the nation's top epidemiologist, the guy with the most credibility. And so he, with two of his colleagues at Johns Hopkins, wrote a paper basically blasting this thing. It's like, you want to lock down society? You will discredit public health forever. You want to stop travel? That will accomplish nothing. You want to keep people away from each other? For what purpose? That doesn't achieve anything. You want to close the schools? The schools are where the virus should pass, where it should be spread. You want to shut the theaters? What about human liberty? This is not a good way to go about controlling viruses. And he concludes his paper. He's like, the most important thing you can do to control a virus is to maintain normal social functioning. If you do anything but that, you will create a calamity the world's never seen before. It's a brilliant paper, 2006. Donald Henderson, great man, wise man. All right, so that was basically the team. So it was the doctors versus the programmers, and they got invited to the White House. Now George Bush is in the audience with all his bureaucratic friends who were schooled at the Kennedy School of Government in Georgetown and so on. They don't know anything about viruses. They're very forgotten. They don't know anything. And they're looking at presentations. And I talked to a person who was there, and she describes it to me the following way. This is literally what happened. So the doctors go first, the actual medical people. The next virus, well, the funny thing is every virus is new. And I don't entirely know what they're going to do, so you have to kind of wait and see. You don't really understand whether it's going to be mild, moderate, or severe. You don't really know that except looking back. So all you can really do is, like when the virus comes along, figure out who's dying and who's contributing to herd immunity. And as best you can, once you find out who the vulnerable populations are, like isolate them as best you can and protect them from the virus. And everybody else should just spread. And otherwise, stay calm, and doctors know how to deal with respiratory illnesses. We're doing the best we can. So that's our solution. They sit down. Very boring presentation. Scientific, not impressive to politicians. The next group that stands up are suddenly the computer modelers, and led by Robert and Sarah. By the way, God bless her, right? She's unreachable now. She's 29 years old. She got a master's in divinity. She will not talk to the press. I have no idea where she is. So she's probably is mortified about the abuse that she experienced as a child. So I'm not blaming her really. She's a good person to talk to. I don't know. I'd love to talk to her. Love to interview her. Anyway, the modelers go next. Boom, up comes the PowerPoint presentations. Here comes the virus. Well, it's going to wipe us all out. Millions will die unless we close the schools, close the theaters, shut down Broadway, and close Amtrak and subways, and destroy your business, and lock everybody down in their homes, and socially distance, and targeted layer containment, and all these things. But now they had a whole language apparatus too. They had it all figured out. Well, why would we do that? To flatten the curve. Why should we flatten the curve? Because there's not enough hospital resources to deal with the millions and billions of dead that are going to come about as a result of this virus. So we have to do all these things. And if we don't do them, boom, all these people are going to be dead. George Bush is going to be responsible. If you do them, lots of people will be alive and you'll be considered a hero. All right, so George Bush is listening to this and going, I think these computer programs kind of have a thing going, These doctors kind of suck. They're really boring and irrelevant. They're not giving me any kind of a popular scenario I can really follow. But these doctors, wow, that's science. I mean, did you not see that PowerPoint? That's a freaking PowerPoint. That's science. So he leaves this meeting and he orders the CDC to incorporate aspects of the social distancing model into CDC's official response. So you can read the 2007 directive from CDC and see there's a little skeptical of this, but George Bush wanted to do it. It was the first CDC thing they ever recommended closing schools. CDC, school closures. So anyway, so that's what happened, and George Bush goes away. So really, if you want to blame anybody for what's happened to us, I think George Bush. It's weird. It's weird. This happened 14 years ago, but this is what happened. It's bizarre. It's strange. Like basically, what happened was the computer programmers took over the medical doctors and fashioned out a policy for how to deal with this. And let me mention in passing, and I'll not go back to this, but there's this guy named Bill Gates. Yeah. So he made a lot of money, and he began to get obsessed with virus theory. Have you watched his YouTubes? Yeah. So the guy does nothing. Like, it's a complete medical ignorance. Like, he clearly knows nothing about viruses, how they work, where they come from, where they go after we don't get them, and so on. The guy is a complete fool. He treats them as like some foreign baby or something. That's it. That's his whole thing. I mean, like, I wish he'd read my book, my favorite book, Microbiology for Dummies, because there's a lot more truth in that than there is in anything he thinks. And so he began to fund epidemiology departments all over the world. He thinks that you can solve everything through a computer model, right? Computer models and government. Government, computer models, surely we can eradicate virus. Those are the two things you need. And money, billions of dollars. So gradually over the next 14 years, that's what happened. Basically the modelers took over from the medical doctors, and we found ourselves where we are today. Now, what's fascinating to me is what happened. Okay, I already mentioned 2009, H1N1. Nobody cared, financial crisis, Obama's president, who cares? Won't care about a virus. But then another 11 years had to go by. So when this one came along, suddenly all these guys about whom nobody cared anything at all for 10 years, and they always look back at their salad days of hanging around at the White House with George Bush, and they've been irrelevant ever since, eating dinner with their families, going on their flipping vacations, and nobody cares about them. And they hear about the coronavirus and think, now's our chance. And so they started an email list. This was in late January. It's called the Red Dawn email list. The New York Times has published most of this correspondence, but I can promise you, not all, despite my begging and pleading with them, because I have a lot of these documents in my inbox right now that I don't even know if I can release, because I don't want to live in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. So I've been begging the New York Times. They got all the same documents through the Freedom of Information Act, but they will not release them. Very interesting to me. Actually, it's super shitty, and it pisses me off. Because if people would see the things that went on in those months, they would be outraged. Outraged. So now I will tell you the name of the man who pulled the trigger. His name is Carter Meacher, and he works for the Veterans Administration now. And he's very, very stupid. He's a doctor. Yeah, you can't be that stupid to get a medical degree, right? But he's a failed doctor, because he's from Chicago, and they kicked him out, and he went to work for the Veterans Administration. What do you know of a practicing physician who goes to work for the Veterans Administration? What does that tell you? So the guy's a loser. And his obsession was, guess what, bioterrorism. So he hadn't practiced medicine in 30 years, just like Fauci, by the way. I won't go there. The guy's a lockdowner who dated back decades, who's never cured anybody of any virus, ever. And so Carter Meacher begins to be, have you ever been on an email list where there's like a bunch of CCs? There's always some one jerk who's like weirdly lording it over everybody and defining the framework of the list and denouncing people who don't agree with him and like writing more messages than anybody else, and everybody kind of gives up and let that guy take over. It always happens on these weird email lists. So that's what was going on. Carter Meacher was that guy, a lockdowner and a disciple of Robert and Sarah Glass, and is always screenshotting their stupid 2006 paper and sending it to everybody. This lockdown. So on March 13th, the day after I got back from New York, he sends out a document that I think is like, it's one of those guys that stays up all night, like you did in college, writing the term paper on whatever that drug is, that methamphetamine drug. I think it's on that drug. But he wrote like a 40-page email. What's that stuff called? Adderall. Yeah, it's like an Adderall addict or something. So he stays up all night writing like this huge document citing Robert and Sarah Glass, and of course, Phil's good friend, what's his name, Ferguson? Yeah, Neil Ferguson, right? All these people are the same. Neil Ferguson, physicist, specialist in crystals, same thing. And he was arguing for the closing of schools. All the schools have to be shut down. It's like people say that would be a bad idea. Not really. Everybody will stay at home. You know, and he actually says this in the email. He's like, "That's okay if kids are hanging around their house." You know, on weekends I don't see kids out on the streets. Mostly they're inside posting on Instagram. Let's just let them do that for a long time. You know, while we close the schools. Let's pull the trigger now. Pull the trigger now, and then we will eradicate the virus. And it was a very compelling, even crazy message. At this point, the Red Dawn emails probably had like more than 100 public health officials on it. And that message was the one, as far as I can tell, that sent them all into a panic. Right, so you're a government bureaucrat, what are you going to do? You're going to take a risk? No, you're not going to take a risk. Close the schools. It was that message. And by the way, as far as I know, that memo has never been made public. In fact, I'm sure of it. It's sitting on my email right now. I'm desperate. I want to release it, but as I say, I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know. But this guy, just a hater of schooling, a hater of lives, a hater of normal people, a central planner, just an absolute freak. So March 13th, and I think it was probably 16th, was the day that all the schools were closed, right? 16th, 17th, 18th. And then on March 13th, the same day, Pence's commission came out with their report, which was a central plan, the lockdown plan, very much influenced, again, by the computer modelers and everybody else. Remember, you've seen that thing, right? Yeah, 15 days to whatever the curve. And it was a hellish time, a time of deep ignorance and panic and police state totalitarianism. And then within a few weeks, SWAT teams were arriving at rural Texas bars to arrest people for drinking beer. And in Wisconsin, the police were arresting mothers who were taking their kids next door to a play date. And so on and so on. People's lives were being destroyed, and the desolation and the destruction in this country as a result of intellectual error is impossible to describe, and it makes me cry every single day. Even our own beloved Lancaster, which used to be a hopping town of happiness and joy, now has half the businesses shut and everybody else standing behind plexiglass with masks. That's what we've done to ourselves. And why? Why do we do it? It's because we forgot, because we don't believe in human rights, because we don't believe in human liberty, because we don't trust that society is smarter than the state. That's what happened to us. You know, we have all been involved in this movement for many years. And why? Because we believe in an idea, and we think that idea is important. We believe in a society that runs itself. Human rights, liberties. We think we have the right to live a full life. We don't really trust the government to manage our lives for us. And we've been involved for a long time, because we believe in this. Let me ask you a question. Did you have any idea until recently just how important this cause is, how important your lives are, how important your belief structure is? It's everything. The things you believe in this room, they didn't save us this time, right? Maybe not enough of us. Maybe we're not compelling enough. Maybe we didn't tell the truth enough. Maybe we didn't act with enough passion. We did something wrong. I don't know. Or maybe we didn't. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Next time, we can never allow this to happen again. Yes. It can never happen again. I don't entirely know what that means. I'm not telling you what to do. God knows I'm through with exhorting anybody about anything. I don't want to be told what to do by anybody ever again as long as I live. I'm sick of it. So I will not tell you what to do. But surely there's something you can do. Again, to go back to my first thing, I'm just glad you're here. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad you're breathing. I'm glad we've been able to be together, that you can experience a little bit of happiness, a little bit of hope, a little bit of vision for the future, a good life. Don't lose it, my friends. Don't lose that hope. Please believe again. The world is made of nothing other than what's in your heart and your mind. What you do, what you believe. They don't control history. We do. It's time not to despair, not to give up. Find that thing within you. It's in there because you're a human being with rationality and passion and love. You're here because you believe in life. Let's all find it. I've said for years that I think this group is important. I don't think it's ever been important than it is right now. And now we realize, now we know, this is not just a debating club. We're not just about buying and reading books. This is about life itself and the future of humanity, whether we're going to thrive or die. Everything comes down to you tonight. I believe that. I'm not going to give you any instructions because I don't even know the way forward, but I do know, I do believe.
Hide and go seek in the middle of the talk.
Now's the time for hope. Now's the time for gratitude. Now's the time for friendship. Now's the time for social closeting. Anyway, my friends, look, I've never felt more park-festy than I do now. And, I just want to thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to my slightly, I'm sure, slightly tedious story. And thank you for your friendship. Thanks very much.